Thank you for the introduction. Very nice, you guys. What I'd like to do in the next, what do we have, about an hour and a half together? Something like that? Okay, is share with you my experiences when I sat in your chair in a 400 level class. And I want to share a little about my background so I get connected with you. You guys can understand where I came from, what I had and didn't have in my life, and then what it took to get to this place of being able to invest and be part ownership in 6 different businesses over the course of my career, right? So that's where I'd like to go. And I'd really like to impart with you some of the battle lessons I've taken, some of the beatings on my back I've taken. I love what Jim shared with you. It's okay to fail in business, and especially in this class. You hate failing, all right? But that's part of making yourself better, so someday you will provide a product or a service that the market will accept, all right? So I went to engineering school. I graduated back in the 80s. Let's see, this is before most of you were born, probably, right? So who here is a first-generation college student from your family? So about a third or so of us, okay? So who here was born with a silver spoon in their mouth? A lot of coin, a lot of money, family of wealth. Nobody? Okay, so we got somebody here that might have some capital. So all you guys that want to start a business, you got to look over here, okay? Isn't that how Facebook started? Wasn't one of the guys got the money, right? Wasn't he the finance guy? Okay. Well, my background was very humble. I was born to farmers in Iowa. My dad hadn't gone to college as a traditional student. I have 2 siblings, and we all went to college, so I was the second traditional person to go to college in my family. I went to engineering school because of a passion and desire I have for science. All right, but the critical thing I wanted to share with you was when I went to college was I started very humbly. I worked my way through school at a meatpacking house, John Morrell Meatpacking House. So I worked in beef kill, sheep kill, and hog kill, right? So I'd do anything to get my life started. And that started with college, and then I went on to graduate school, right? So I have an MBA as well. Now, when I was you guys' age in the 400 level class, I didn't have any capital, right? And I didn't understand what this school tries to teach you on networking, right? Doesn't everybody talk to you about networking here? It's really important, all right? So the way I started out my career was I went to work for a corporation, right? I had to get a job right out of school. I had no money. So people ask me, the guys sent over some questions. They ask you, well, how did you do your financing? How do you get your capital raised? And for me, it was, you make this much, you live a lifestyle here, all your buddies are out drinking beer, playing softball at night, or going to Hawaii, they want to play golf, they join the tennis club, all that stuff. I didn't do any of that, right? I bought a small little house, did a long commute, worked a lot of hours, and then eventually what do you do with that difference between those 2 curves? It becomes your working capital, right? So how many of you see yourself potentially starting your entrepreneur life as creating your own capital that way? Okay. Now, for you that didn't raise your hand, either you don't care or how do you want to raise your capital?
With some small business, like I imported iPhones from the US to Germany, sold them and saved money so when the point is coming, when I have an idea, I can start it.
So you have some capital.
It's not much, but for students, not bad.
Very good, very good. How else are you guys going to raise your capital? Borrow? Small business loan? What else?
Maybe network and find somebody who could be like the money man and, start a business partnership like that.
That's a pretty good idea, you guys. That's something I didn't learn until I was later in life, right? So when I was sitting in your chair, where I came from was, as I was sharing with the guys, I can do this. Rugged individualism. Get out of my way. I can do this, right? And so you can go that direction. I went that direction. I'll share with you some of the success I had and some of the failures going that direction. But the idea of networking with people and trying to find capital is an excellent suggestion. And we'll get into that a little later and some of the lessons that I've had in that area as well, all right? So again, I'm sitting in your chair. I graduate from college. I get a job. And I decided that I'm going to do it myself. Well, here's one of the things that you as an entrepreneur be careful about, all right? When you have a great passion, you're after something like that, you probably have blinders on as well. Right? For me as a young man, a lot of energy, a good education, all right, but extremely closed-minded. Right? Arrogant. Non-receptive to others' inputs. I'm going to get this done. Get out of my way. You like that passion, though? Right? The energy? I'm going to get this done? Right? That's the balance you're going to have as an entrepreneur. You have a passion for something, a huge amount of energy you're going to drive towards, right? But you also have blind spots. Make sense? Who's gone through Keirsey or Myers-Briggs? The school gives you guys a whole bunch of surveys to get to know yourself a little bit. Who's gone through that yet? Has everybody gone through that? So the first time I went through that, I think I was in my 30s. I wasn't fortunate like you guys were. And even though I was in my 30s, I thought it was a bunch of flowery stuff and didn't really have any application to myself. That's how closed-minded I was. Right? Having good advisors around you to help you with those blind spots that you may have on your business plan or what you're trying to accomplish is critical. Right? So you started a business. Did you have any advisors?
Me?
Yes.
I would say I also did some mistakes. Like I lost a lot of money. Like people scammed me and stuff. But you know, these are experiences that you profit from those, and you can learn like how to figure out if a guy wants through you or not. And you know what I mean? You become a feeling.
But did you have any advisors, any trusted advisors that looked over your business plan for you, had differences of opinions with you, things like that?
If there's a possibility that you can lose some money, but it's not all your money, go for it. So I only risk that money that I have like above my savings that I have to use for my life.
Risk, yeah, okay, all right. So I guess
Maybe not know what advisors are.
yeah, okay. So I'll give you an experience that I had when I was your age and I started my first, into my first 2 franchises. Okay, this was my first dose of running businesses myself. All right, I'd saved up some capital. I bought into a couple franchises. These were real estate franchises. By the way, you guys, I've done everything from electronics, consumer electronics, real estate, bred horses. I can go through all those lessons with you. So I've been all over the place in different types of businesses. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about trusted advisors and your passion, but also the blind spots you potentially have, and I'll give you an example in my own life. So I'm young now. I've probably been saving money and living like a miser for 6 or 8 years. So I got to be in my late 20s now, or maybe I'm 30 by now. I decided I'm going to buy these 2 franchises. So I took my working capital that I had and a note, and that was the creative financing. The guy who was going to sell it took back a note for some of the equity that he thought he had in the business, right? Or that he did have in the business, because I signed the note. I gave him my cash. And I had a partner. It's the first time and probably the last time I'll ever have a partnership. I will never join again in a partnership. It'll be some sort of a corporate structure or something like that, but I will never join with another partner. And here's the blind spots I had. Even at 30 years old, I was not capable of understanding deeply the character of another man. Okay? Character of another man or a woman, an individual, is a critical thing. Probably heard about that before. But your character, who you are as an individual, is going to attract things into your life. Either money. Everybody's got ideas, right? But not money. You need advisors, people around you that will help you say, hey, Shane, you know, you're going to run out of cash. You don't have enough revenue. People say, you know what, the way you dress and talk to that customer, you're never going to get any revenue from that. You need people around you that you're going to have a tough discussion with, right? And those people around you can help rub the edges off of you as an individual. And so back to my real story. So I get these 2 real estate franchises. And by the way, it was a lot of fun at that time, you guys. It's not dissimilar to today. There was something called the savings and loan fiasco. And back when you guys were little ones, there were a couple of ways that the banks worked. There were banks and there were savings and loans. And savings and loans blew up a whole bunch of notes in the marketplace in the real estate, and they went south. And so like today, even though the housing market's upside down, guess what? There's a lot of opportunity. So through these franchises, we would buy houses, rehab them, flip them, and pocket the cash, right? Well, the individual I went into with partnership that I didn't have the ability to see his character was someone I had to walk away from. So I think after about 2 years, I said I had enough and I walked away. Sure enough, about 4 or 5 years later, I read in the paper, guess what? He got busted. Whether he went to jail or not, I don't know, but it was fraud, right? So I was very glad that I had ejected myself out of that man's character realm. All right, so great lesson. So if you're taking notes, every now and then I'll try to give you a little pearl of wisdom. A man or a woman's character is critical when you're in business. And the first person to look at is you in the mirror. So you need advisors around you. These are men and women that you trust to be your mentors. Maybe they have strengths in areas that you don't. So if you're great in sales, maybe you need somebody that's in accounting or in finance, right? Maybe you're great in finance, well, you're going to need somebody in sales. You need men or women around you who may have started businesses beforehand and can help you understand those, I'll call them potholes in the dark alleys, right? Let alone the sledgehammer that's coming your way, but especially those potholes in the dark alley. So my recommendation would be you have at least three advisors around you constantly. Some may say more, but I think 3 is a good number, right? Pick 3 people around you that can have a different opinion than you, and be mature enough to when they give you their advice and insight that you don't defend your position. You reach into the other person and try to truly understand where they're coming from and what they're trying to teach you, what they're sharing with you. So even when you have a difference of opinion and you want to, if you're like I was when I was 25, 30 years old, and I wasn't going to listen to anybody, I was just going to get it done myself. I love that passion and energy in any entrepreneur. But now have the wisdom to put yourself, say 3 people around you that will be your advisors, that will look for your blind spots in your character, especially in your revenue plan. Okay? Speaking of revenue, so I'll go to that one real quick. You want to start a business in here? All right. So after you got the capital, wherever that came from, what's the most important thing in your mind that you got to get done? Right away. Sell. Everybody hear that? Revenue. Right? I've heard some conservative people who have a lot of battle scars say, you know, if I can't get revenue in 3 months, I'm not going to join in on that, or at least I won't put my own capital risk in that. All right? So what I've seen in the last 2 startups I was at that were on the tech side here in San Diego is that time to revenue is critical. Time to revenue is critical because you're going to burn through your capital much faster than you thought, and it's probably going to take you twice as long to get the revenue as you think. So if you think you've got revenue in 18 months, you've done your projections, it could take you twice that. Right? So revenue. So you got to get to revenue as fast as possible. So in your business plans, you guys, and you got your spreadsheet, or even if it's on the back of a napkin, you really got to think through your selling and your revenue. Right? Everybody got that? Seems so simple, but it's really critical. I'll give you a live story that goes on right now with what I do with my partners in the ranch. I've used this before. We see a lot of business plans with my partners in the ranch. A lot of people looking for money. Right? They're not large enough to go to VCs for 10 or 15 or 20 million dollars. These are people maybe like yourself that are looking for $200,000 or $300,000. Right? Maybe 50,000 to get them through the next few months. They could be looking for as much as $500,000. So it's not a lot of money, but is that big enough of a figure where you can wrap your hands around a few $100,000 in working capital, you guys? Does that feel like you could do that? Could you pitch for that? For your businesses? Could you? Would you feel comfortable pitching for a couple $1 million? Mm-hmm. When I was your age, I didn't know how to pitch for money at all. It came out of my wallet. That's how brave I was, right? So what I'm trying to get at is my partners and I see a lot of different business plans that come through, and the thing we look for is the revenue. When will the revenue come in? Because I don't want to share this individual's business plan with a bunch of net worth wealthy people in Rancho Santa Fe, okay, if they don't have a solid plan on how they're going to get to revenue. let's see, failures. So I told you a little bit about my first business, my partnership, and how I was glad I ejected myself from that position. This is a consumer electronic business that I got started in about 3 years ago. It is cash flow neutral to slightly positive. I hooked up with an engineer or two up on the other side of LA in a consumer electronic part. It was a game controller on a MIDI guitar, electric guitar, MIDI guitar. The founder is a wonderful guy. His blind spots is that he was a product development person. Who loves to develop products in here? 1, 2, 3. Who likes to tinker with things and build 4, 5, 6? So maybe there's, what is that, about 10% of you so? So here's a blind spot I got when I have my own money and my own time invested in this business. One of the founders was the product development guy of this MIDI guitar. Well, he didn't want to get to revenue fast enough because there was always something else he wanted to put into the product. Feature creep, right? Marketing gets involved. You ever heard feature creep before? Well, watch for that. Don't get your product to market, get your revenue, and then you can figure out if you need to change your product, right? But you got to get revenue. So he let feature creep happen, and it almost torpedoed the business, right? Had a big brouhaha with the board of directors, and we basically had to throw the guy out, right? It's a terrible deal. He's a great guy, but his blinders were he wouldn't listen to anybody else's advice. Loved his passion, right? Sit and have a cup of coffee. You love talking with the guy. But he would not allow anyone else to give him any advice until the board had to throw him out. It's too late, right? You don't want to see that happen to you guys, right? Okay? All right, so that's one of my other failures is looking at making an investment with someone else who's not receptive to different ideas. All right, so be receptive to different ideas and get those people around you. All right. Okay, I think Jim talked about it earlier. You guys are going to do this project that's coming up. You want to try to find something you have some desire for, some passion for. Passion and energy in an entrepreneur is critical, right? Because you're going to work weekends, you're going to work nights. If you're like me, where you had a full-time job, you will be working early in the morning before you go to work. You will be working after work, and you'll probably be working both Saturdays and maybe Sundays, right? So it's probably a good thing that you have a lot of passion for that, because then it's really not work. Work is work. Entrepreneurship is passion and fun. It's like going to a game, right? Does anybody have that sense inside them that entrepreneurship's a game, that it's fun, right? If you don't, then maybe entrepreneurship's not for you, okay? So to have that burning passion is really a critical thing. So when I was your age, everybody said, well, do something you're passionate about. I had no idea what that meant, right? It wasn't like, I wanted to be Steve Jobs and turn the world upside down. I just wanted to have a happy, healthy family, okay? That's all I really wanted, right? So what drove me to get into being an entrepreneur was the idea that work was fine. I love engineering. I love technology, right? But I wanted something new and different. I wanted to meet new people. I wanted to experience different businesses. I wanted to be out and basically be in the game of business, not just making a paycheck. It's a very different mindset, right? Working for someone else is okay. Doing something with other passionate people is a lot of excitement. Not that you can't have that in a corporate structure. You can get on teams to where you'll have a lot of fun in a corporate structure. I've been on those. But when you're out on your own with 2 or 3 other people sometimes, there's a lot of pleasure that can come from seeing that success come through, right?